Alicia, you and Min each came from TradFi and recently forayed into blockchain. I was wondering, maybe other people in the room are as well, what lessons you can impart on TradFi builders who are now looking to bring a crypto or blockchain product to market.
Yeah, so I kind of got thrown into this when I joined the company. I didn't know anything about Web3, TradFi, never heard that term. It was interesting because as a product manager, I think a lot of people think you have to know every aspect, right, of the product and every minute detail, which is not true. And so as my background at Capital One, I've had a lot of different roles in process management, project management, marketing, which I think laid a great foundation for knowing how to execute, in addition to being able to develop a product strategy. And so for product managers, being able to ask the right questions and getting really passionate about what the customer problem is that you're working to solve is really the most important thing. And as long as you can do that and execute or help your team execute, I think it doesn't really matter your background, just go for it and try new things and learn.
Yeah, I think just echo a little bit what Alicia has to say here. I think for me, one of the most important things for anyone that's kind of looking to jump from Web 2 to Web 3 is engage don't build in a vacuum. Engage the community that you're in, engage the local users that you're looking to service. I think to me, it's Web 3 is, I think of it as sometimes I think of it as like a very big, giant white canvas, and you have many different opportunities kind of build on top of it with whatever way that you're looking to build on it and draw on it. And sometimes it's actually really hard to actually just to pick a thing to get started on it. But I think for me, it's maybe sometimes like as any artist or any sort of like writer who is kind of starting to try to draw a new painting, sometimes just start dabbling on some of these lines on the drawing or writing a few lines to kind of get yourself get started there. It's very important. So if you're looking to kind of come into Web3, start out with just engage in these local communities like Discords, or join a small team to kind of to launch a small MVP product on Web3 and get to learn about the challenges that these guys are going to, and then slowly you'll find that the dabbles that you kind of have drawn previously might become the things that you realize that what the things that you want to draw in the future. So I think the other thing I'll just say here is that we're still, all of us know that we're still in the very early stages of Web3. One of the biggest challenges right now is still on the whole sort of technical infrastructure. There's a lot of talks about on and off ramps, getting that sort of more efficient, more accessible. A lot of talks about user experience. How can we kind of get Web3 to be a lot more user friendly? There's talks about scalability. How do you kind of get things to scale in the Web3 ecosystem? I'll touch upon just one key part here, which is the on and off ramp piece here. I think it's great to have partners like MoneyGram here to kind of help to kind of join this partnership here. And actually having you guys here has really kind of accelerated our sort of part of growth process in the Web3 space. And I think one of the things that I really kind of enjoy working with Alicia's team and also with Jesse here is that seeing the team sort of kind of coming together, brainstorm and innovate on these sort of basic foundational things that you take for granted in Web 2, things such as how do you cancel a transaction, how do you refund a transaction, how do you do account reconciliation or reporting. These are things that that's been done many times over in the Web 2 space, but in the Web 3, because of the decentralized nature, you have to kind of rethink it through and think about how things can be kind of done through that way. And I think the team has done a great job actually creating this net new features in terms of getting more non-crypto users into the space. We're just kind of getting started, and I think with the help of MoneyGram's team, we're actually really trying to kind of create this net new sort of user-friendly user experience to users, but also maybe to other sort of wallets that are looking to work with MoneyGram, work with other on and off ramps to create that better real world user experience for the folks that don't know about crypto yet there. So yeah, super excited for that there.
That's excellent. I have some more questions for you very shortly. But just to switch gears here, so Bianca, you have a very interesting perspective as senior legal counsel and someone who's also worked with a wallet as product counsel for several years. Most of us have dealt with lawyers at some stage, I think, hopefully, or maybe not hopefully, we'll see. But product counsel is very specialized. Could you share a little bit more about how that role supports product launches and what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think product counsel is the best job a lawyer can get because we basically get to play with all the cool technology and the cool products that you guys are building. So as soon as I figured out this was actually a job that you could do, I put my hand up and said, yes, please. And so basically, the value that a good product counsel can add is that their ability to understand the technology that you're trying to build, because understanding the technology then enables them to really get crisp on identifying what risks, legal risks, you might be encountering if you're going to be launching this product. Because of their understanding of the technology, they can also be really helpful in coming up with mitigations. So that could be legal compliance, but often there's a way to build a product in a way that sidesteps or mitigates the legal risks in the first place, which is ideal. And then a really good product counsel will be able to work creatively with your product managers and your engineers to come up with sort of, a full sort of go-to-market strategy right through all the product sprints to try and make sure that you're managing legal risk. And at the end of the day, the product counsel isn't someone that says you shouldn't do this. They're someone that just flags the risks and makes sure that they either get mitigated or signed off on by the right person. And I think it's a role that's really important in crypto, not only because the tech is so much more complex, but because in Web3, we're usually working in a more highly regulated space than we were in Web2. So it's a really fun job, and I think it's a really important part of a startup.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten a chance to learn a lot from you in terms of all the different regulatory challenges that we face in going into different markets, and it's been very helpful.
Yeah. I have a lot of job security.
Well, great. Well, I'm going to move into go-to-market questions. So, Min, this one's for you. In the past year, Vibrant has launched into 2 new geographies, the U.S. and Mexico. We're also currently in Argentina. And we're planning to launch in many more. I guess the question that I have is, how do you validate the product ideas in new emerging markets with users that maybe aren't so crypto savvy or very familiar with the space?
Yeah, I think if we're talking about sort of traditional sort of product validation, typically the process is, basically, you set up a hypothesis, thinking about, what product that you have, what hypothesis you have for this product, and then you look at to do some sort of market research, assess the market to see like what's the overall market, sort of, TAM and things like that there, and then you kind of, get some of these, sort of local user sort of feedbacks, getting sort of to understand some initial feedbacks around the sort of hypothesis that you've set. And then finally, you go about and start, set up these sort of tests, to validate, if the product that you're trying to kind of create of the hypothesis that you've set is kind of coming back with the right data. But I think the question here is, if I would come to look at the question a little bit more, I think it's also around how can you quickly test? How can you validate quicker? How can you kind of create and once the validation is done, what do you do there after that? What if it's not the right validation? What if it is the right validation? So as a Vibrant team, this is where I'm kind of super glad to be working with teams with like Bianca and Jesse here to getting the team to come together to set up what Bianca mentioned about a go-to-market sort of checklist or process to make sure that we have these processes in place to really kind of to go run through the process to ensure that these type of pilot tests, the things that we're trying to set up, is all sort of being done in a sort of scalable way, and be able to kind of quickly get these results come back, real world results come back to the real world data come back quickly. And this is again, I think, where one of the reasons why we kind of chose to to prioritize MoneyGram's integration as one of our top priorities here is that with MoneyGram you have now the ability to kind of test in hundreds of different countries very quickly and to set up these sort of testing to be able to get these real world sort of market feedbacks is very important. And Vibrant's at a point where now we have this integration ready. We can really kind of go into any markets that we want to kind of go into to kind of quickly test and see, what's the market sort of telling us and how we can kind of quickly move forward or move backwards to our drawing board and to kind of rethink. And the other thing I was kind of just mention here is that the way that how we kind of Vibrant has sort of built out our sort of product infrastructure is that we purposefully build it in a way that to allow ourselves to pivot very quickly. I mentioned this already, there's still a very early stage of Web3, so getting things, 100% really forecast on how things will turn out is very not possible.
Not product management.
Yeah, exactly. And so, having a strategy around, to be able to quickly pivot, having your product designed to be a way to kind of to be flexible enough to kind of to change to different directions and needs, it's very important too. So I'll stop there for that.
Yeah. Actually, Alicia, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on the product validation from the MoneyGram side. Is there anything?
Yeah, we've been talking about this a lot as a team. How do you experiment quickly, right? And it doesn't have to be the perfect experiment. And you don't want to, it's not to prove that the thing that you think is right is the right thing. It's to find out what you don't know and then what you may need to solve for next. So yeah, it's one of the fun things about being a product manager.
Yeah, totally. Great. Well, I have another question for you, Alicia, which is just talking about hurdles related to MoneyGram Access. And so I guess my question for you is, what would you say is the biggest hurdle that you faced when bringing MoneyGram Access to life? And, how have you overcome it, or how have you managed it on your side?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, this was very new to me coming into the company. And when I joined, we were transitioning from pilot, right? So like the test to the real deal. And I think doing something that you've never done before on its own is a challenge, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, all those unknown unknowns, and working to solve for those. But then also for us, I think and I had notes about this and now I'm totally blanking saying faces, but just the global scale of what we did was a challenge, right? And the team, we have a lot of work to do. We're going to continue to evolve the product. It's an awesome tool, it's an awesome product, but as a product manager, you're continually looking for kind of like that next thing. Getting ready operationally is also very important. And so one of the things that the team has recently enabled that I'm super proud of, because they had to work across the entire organization, across the globe to put this into place, is a dedicated contact center for users that were calling in for this product. So product we've never done before. People are calling in, the contact center is like, what are you talking about? So, just quickly mobilizing and working together to overcome that by having a dedicated number and a dedicated line for and channel for people to call in with these new types of questions is one of the recent things that we've done to help with that.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I think that also, I've also seen like dozens of tests being run in person at physical MoneyGrams, which is sort of unheard of in the digital world. And so, it seems like there's been a lot of interesting challenges, but very, very breakthroughs, very significant things that have been gone up. So I had a question actually, Bianca, now to transition to you. For legal challenges. I'm sure other people here might also be builders and are curious about what legal challenges they might face when bringing a new product to market. So do you have any things that you think that people run into, not to call us out specifically? But
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm generally a very positive person, and the reality is there are a lot of legal challenges. It can be really difficult building in Web3. I think to start, Web3 is generally more highly regulated than Web2, so that it's a lot more sensitive to start. As with all new technology, we're dealing with laws that were built for, in this case, TradFi, that don't always apply. So there's an area of legal uncertainty. It's like sometimes you literally can't comply with the law, other times it's unclear if you're required to or not. in addition to the legal uncertainty, there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty because we know that governments around the world are looking to regulate crypto more specifically. And also similar to Web 2, but Web 3 is usually built for global, I won't say global launch, we talk about that, but to scale globally. And the reality is that the law doesn't operate that way. It's very much a piecemeal, country by country. We do have some regional frameworks such as in the EU, but it's very difficult to map a quote unquote global product to a global legal landscape because it just doesn't exist. So that can be really challenging as well. And I think lawyers and legal teams have traditionally worked in silos in very sort of proprietary forms. And I think because Web3 is much more open source, much more collaborative, what I'm excited to see, hopefully more and more, is legal teams and lawyers collaborating and open sourcing the solutions they come up with, because it is really hard. And I think we need to do it together. And we've seen a lot of this on the lobbying front. And I'd really love to see more of that on in-house legal teams coming up with industry best practices and working together and open sourcing solutions. I think that would help the whole industry move forward in what is otherwise a difficult challenge.
That actually, I mean, there's, I'm sure, a lot of wallets here that may not have in-house legal counsel, so I can imagine that would be helpful.
Yeah, it's tough.
Standards. That's awesome. Well, I guess now I wanted to ask some questions about looking to the future, and then I want to open up for questions for the audience. So the first one, I guess, is for you, Alicia, which is you have a very large backlog of wallets that are all eager to integrate with MoneyGram Access. I guess the question I have for you is, how do you decide which partner is next, and what goes into that decision-making process?
Yeah, so that's a tough one, and I promise I'm not getting paid to say this, but if you're already integrated with SEP24, it makes it a lot faster for us because we're not waiting for that to happen and trying to do so many different things in parallel.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, for us, as we look at the list of wallets, if you're already integrated, then we can typically move pretty quickly. And thank you to Bianca for calling out the country by country complexity, because sometimes it takes time to work through that as well. And so just be patient with us because we're all learning together. But yeah, get integrated so you can get the ramp.
Yeah. Bianca, I had another question for you related to the regulatory space. There's a lot of activity in the US and here in the EU and elsewhere right now. What regulations do you think will benefit maybe builders in this audience or consumers?
Yeah, there's a lot happening. And actually I see one of our policy team members in the audience who knows more about that than I do. There's a lot of really, I say, exciting stuff happening on the regulatory front, both in the EU and the US. I think it's a lot less sexy, but honestly, I think for people building in the US, for example, one of the biggest challenges is around money transmission licenses, and we have a very messy, piecemeal, state-based process that has been improved, but it's still very, very difficult. It can still take 2 years, a couple of $100,000 to get licensed. And that feels like a really big barrier in the US. And the EU regime is a lot more harmonized. You can get a similar license in one country, it's much faster, and then you passport it across all of your European countries. So it's kind of crazy that Europe is made up of a whole lot of different countries and has a more harmonized system than the US in that regard. So that's a known problem, but that feels like a really big barrier. So I think that if there was a way to streamline that, for money transmission licenses, that would make a massive difference, because I think we lose a lot of business because of that. Yeah, and also I think sanctions, because it applies across the board, it's not just licensed entities, that's a really tricky one. I just think more clarity. OFAC have started to come out with more guidance in the light of sort of the Tornado Cash incident, so just more guidance from them around that. I think those two, money transmission and sanctions, in the US specifically, would be really helpful.
Kind of goes back to your open source standard. Yeah, that's amazing. So Min, I had a question for you about future products that we can look forward to for Vibrant in 2023. I might have some insider information, but I wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So I think for Vibrant, when we first kind of started on this journey here for the Vibrant team, we always kind of had a sort of North Star around where our product should and should not be. I think from a Vibrant standpoint, we always talk about, like, at least for now, we want to focus on these type of products and use cases that are focused less around sort of speculative trades, allowing more crypto assets kind of to trade, to kind of get to earn these speculative type of earnings there, but more around real world use cases for the digital crypto asset itself, whether that being USDC or what that being XOM or whatever. But I think sort of what you will see in Vibrant in 2023 is that I think we will continue to focus on some of these sort of core sort of technical infrastructure builds that we talked about before. The on and off ramps. We're going to have more of those in different parts of the world, making sure that the user experience that's on ramping and also off ramping in these areas, having the capability to not just be able to on ramp with cash, but also on ramp with bank accounts, with cards, with any type of sort of fiat currency rails that you're looking for, and then also at the same time off ramping in that regards as well too. I think the second thing I would say we want to focus on is additional sort of value added services for the crypto assets. So where Vibrant is very much mainly USDC based wallet at this point. We're trying to figure out ways that where we can get users to use USDC for other type of things that are very important in their lives. Things such as bill payments, allowing them to kind of to be able to receive to use their USDC to pay for things. In addition to like the remittance, in addition to the inflation protection that we're already offering today. Other things we want to see is also like more innovative ways around thinking around Web3 products. Right now, if you think about it, the remittance space is very much about one user sending funds from one place to another sort of receiver at another place. But there hasn't been really much talk about how can we there's actually use cases around like there's community of users that are in one place. So say I'm an immigrant that's living in the U.S. that's from a certain diaspora. There's probably a community of those users actually are sending the money back to same country, same community back in their home country. How can you kind of get this group of users to kind of to be more fully engaged, to act as a community, to kind of to not just kind of send that money back to benefit that individual, but also to benefit that community back in their hometown. That's something that I think that's as Web3, as also as a decentralized infrastructure, we have the basic capability to kind of build on that now. That I think we should kind of explore and innovate and see what we can do there to kind of get more of the community involved in this space there. So innovate on that. So that's the second point. I think the last thing I would say here is there's a lot of things that people talk about like NFTs and things like that. Where the way I think about NFTs is like there's as a collectible, I don't have that much sort of knowledge around collectibles. I don't collect things, but when I think about NFTs, I really think of it as like as a method of a lot of people to kind of to own individual assets and value and personal identity, and that piece itself is actually very interesting to me. Some things that we talked about, potentially utilizing NFTs as like a as a loyalty badge, as a reward type of capability, allow people to to not only to collect this badge as a sort of collectible, but also to get some sort of additional benefit from the ecosystem that you're in. So, for example, like we're creating these ways to allow people to we're calling this Vibrant Quest, which is essentially getting people to do X on the Vibrant app and then be able to earn Y on the app itself. And then one of the products we're thinking about is essentially these badges where we can kind of allow people to not only earn the badge as a collectible, but also to kind of see get itself to represent that user as an individual themselves, and also to be benefit from the ecosystem. So, for example, like a benefit could be like you earn this badge, now you have early access to the latest features, or you're going to get additional sort of financial benefits of say like 30 days boost to your interest earning accounts. Something that we'll talk with Bianca Legal about launching.
Bianca's cringing.
But I think there's a lot of innovations that you can do and think about with this new canvas that we're building. It's actually up to the community here to think about, to evolve, and to kind of build together as a community there. I'll stop there. But yeah, before I get in trouble with legal. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, wow. Lots of exciting things to look forward to. Last question, I guess, for you, Alicia, before we move to audience questions. We've seen some incredible global usage of the MoneyGram product. I saw a recent list of all of the countries that users have cashed out in. It is a very, very long list, pretty incredible. I guess, what do we have to look forward to in 2023?
Yeah, so global usage is what we're kind of going for here. We've seen transactions increasing month over month. And we've also had a great marketing initiative with Vibrant and Lobster. So for other wallets coming on board, as we market and scale the product, obviously we should see that continuing to grow. Additionally, like MoneyGram, while the cash network is really important and exciting, our network is more than just cash. And so broadening the product to include account deposit and wallet and all of those things are in our future. So more to come for sure.
Yeah, I know that Min and I are very excited about that specific features. Well, fantastic. Well, we're around the close, so I wanted to actually open up to audience questions. If you have any questions for these three, so we can field them, feel free to just raise your hand. Can we get a mic over there?
Thank you. It's on. Is it on?
Oh,
I just can't hear it, Lovey. I've got a question from Min. So you mentioned on and off ramps. Could you elaborate on what you see as the main pain points and obstacles for a more fluid interaction between fiat and crypto?
Yeah, very good point. I think as you get into the details of on and off ramp, especially get into the sort of like the front line of how the user experience is, there's certain sort of user experience standardization that still needs to happen in this space. I think MoneyGram and us, we're also trying to solve this together as a whole too. I think the very beginning on when we first launched this product, just kind of going to these location stores to kind of ask about, hey, I'm here for, what am I here for actually? What's the wording that you're trying to tell the cashier, saying like I'm here for what? Even those simple things there are need to be kind of there needs to be a better sort of user standardization experience around that. I think the other things around it is sort of getting that scalable sort of scalability. A lot of on and off ramps today in certain markets are still very in the sort of developing sort of stage where the volume or the depth of these partners that they can support and operate on is actually very limited. So once you have a spike in terms of sort of user traffic and volume coming through, you see some of these sort of cracks start to open up in the space, and you need more. I think for Vibrant, it's actually we're trying to kind of figure out ways like basically having redundancies. Basically, if one sort of rail fails, do we have a backup rail that we can immediately turn on and be able to kind of support that and make sure that we have a seamless sort of a user experience continuing there. We're trying to get there. We're not there yet. So I think these are sort of the existing some of the sort of challenges that we face in terms of infrastructure side of things there. So yeah.
And just on your point on the physical thing, even if you tell people to say something, they'll say something else, and that's a challenge too. So as you can imagine, having as many locations as we have that are transacting, it's just a continuous
Optimization.
optimization, evolution of the product and how it works.
Great question. Over here.
You guys take Mexico, U.S., and Argentina, which I see as three traditionally not crypto-friendly countries. And I kind of wanted to understand, why the focus of those countries.
It's a great question.
maybe I'll start first, and then Bianca can jump in here. But I think for us, it's all about focusing on the use case. What value do we bring to the users at the end of the day? The reason why we started in Argentina was mainly because there's a huge sort of financial currency crisis in the country. And one day, the $1 can be worth, say, 200 Argentinian pesos. The next day, it could be worth $1 could be worth now 250 pesos. So the devaluation of the currency itself is a huge problem in some of these countries that we're looking to operate in. So Argentina, it's all about sort of getting that inflation protection, allowing people having a different way to get access to savings and be able to not worry about having to go to spend a couple hours during the day going to a bank, buying that US dollar, which is limited to $200 per month, and be able to kind of, to build your wealth that way. And so what Vibrant did is essentially allow you to kind of to quickly and easily buy USDC 24/7 at the comfort of your own home, and be able to also to earn a little bit of interest off of there. And then, the reason why we pick US and Mexico, a lot of it is actually, around the remittance sort of use case. There's a huge still a huge need in terms of sort of getting remittance from one place to the other. And then I think what we build with, at least what we're trying to pilot with MoneyGram here is essentially, can blockchain, can crypto really solve that sort of efficiency problem with the traditional sort of settlement space, where it used to take days to kind of for certain funds to be settled, to be available. Now with the blockchain space, it's instant settlement, instant availability, and allowing you kind of get these additional sort of middleman to be cutting out these middlemen sort of in these areas, drive down the lowering the cost for the individual users is important. And I think the last thing I would just say is for the reason why we're operating this space is also local operational support, localization support. Vibrant today has language support for English, Spanish, and another language here, which I won't mention for the moment. But it's essentially looking at the picture of seeing which countries do we have on and off ramps in. What local operation support do we have in terms of Vibrant itself? From a legal standpoint, what can we not do in these countries? And those are sort of the checklists that we kind of go through ourselves here. But Bianca, if you have anything else to add here.
Oh, just that legal is very much one of many inputs into sort of a global or regional launch plan. So Min will come up with a large list of countries that he's interested in, and we will kind of look at them and say green, yellow, red in terms of ease from a legal perspective of entering and operating in that market.
Another great question. I think we have time for one more question.
I have a question. How many years it will take till the crypto will understand everybody and will get adapted to the masses? Because it's a interesting question, but I think that's why I want to ask you.
Yeah.
It's the golden question, I think. Yeah, that's a really good one.
I'll take a stab at this. So I think the recent stat tells us that we have about 300 million sort of crypto users in the world today. So 95% or whatever 99% of the market still are non-crypto. I think you need more products that are really kind of. I think what we need is actually more use cases. Can blockchain actually help solve these use cases for other parts and actually innovate on the existing sort of use cases that you have? I think that's the part that's kind of exciting and important to see. I'll give a story around sort of like back in my old Alipays of the world. It took Alipay about I want to say 7+ years to kind of get to that sort of 100 million users and users in their wallet. But one of their arch nemesis, WeChat Pay, it took them about I think less than a year, like 7 months, to get to 100 million users. And one of the main products that they launched during that time was actually something called red envelope. So essentially, in the Chinese culture, you have during Chinese New Year, you get this sort of physical red envelope that contains cash. Kids will receive them, family and friends will receive them as gifts from relatives. And when they launched this sort of digital red envelope product, you literally see the growth trajectory of this product taking off so quickly that you can't even imagine like what it took a company 7+ years to build. Took this other company less than a year to kind of build on that. So it's all around sort of getting to understand sort of your local user experience and understanding what their needs and are, and kind of really kind of building out these use cases for net new use cases for it. I think Web3 has a lot of opportunities in that, and I think when we haven't seen that, I think in the initial phase we see the DeFi as the initial wave, and then NFTs as sort of like second sort of wave, kind of bringing more of the sort of general masses coming in. But what is that third thing, that third wave that will come in, that kind of will drive the growth here? If you look at back in the old days, PayPal, they had eBay as sort of like their sort of marketplace kind of to do transactions to allow them to kind of flourish and sustain themselves. Even Alipay, they had the equivalent of Amazon.com, which is Taobao.com or Tmall.com, which is the Chinese equivalent of Amazon. Be able to kind of use that sort of commerce of building that trust between a buyer that's middle of nowhere, and then a seller that nobody knows the trust of that seller, that online that seller, who that person is. How can we kind of bridge that sort of trust gap with these type of sort of use cases? I think Web3 also has some answers to that there too. So yeah.
That's a great answer. Well, it looks like we're just out of time, but these three are at the conference for the rest of the time, so please come up to them after. Thank you so much for answering all of the questions we had, and yeah, looking forward to more evolution within the product space, especially on Stellar. So thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.